Hey everybody, this is Workforce Gaming. I'm Doug, along with Brad,
Hey, everybody.
and because everybody else is doing it, we're doing it too. We're going to be reviewing Uncharted 4, and I like to start a review by saying I have actually not finished this game. I am about a third of the way through this game, so I'm not going to give my like final say on the game. Brad actually has completed this. Brad bought it day one. I've rented it. Not a huge fan of the series. But I haven't
Boo.
finished it, so like any sort of opinion I have, like if you've beaten the game, you're like, oh well, he hasn't gotten to that part, so he doesn't know, kind of
I'll
thing.
correct you.
That's fine. No, that's actually good. That's good. And we're gonna try to keep this as spoiler free as possible, mostly because I've only played about a third of the game, so I don't know any spoilers. And Brad's generally pretty good about it, and I'm pretty spoiler sensitive.
Except
So
for the part at the end where everybody dies.
oh god, don't even. Yeah, I got every like final game in a series like somebody's gonna die. I don't know who it is. Somebody's gonna die. Anyway, so to get into it, what is your usually I like to just for the end where it's kind of like what's your one sentence summary of this game? So Brad, what is your one sentence summary review of Uncharted 4?
Uncharted 4 is arguably the best game I've ever played.
And I think you're crazy.
See, now okay. Now we need to point a couple things out here now.
Yeah,
Doug is a firm believer in the newest game I've played is the best game I've ever played.
I am. I
Because
am.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure since we started this thing like 2 months ago, there have been two or three of the best games you've ever played in Ratchet and Clank, and you reference Bloodborne all the time,
Yeah.
and yeah, I am much
Hitman.
more of a
Yeah.
firm believer of Halo 2, Final Fantasy 10, Resident Evil 4. Nothing will really beat those games, and this one is right up there with those three
It's beaten
for
Halo.
sure.
I don't believe that. For you
See,
anyway.
okay, yeah, so very different game, but in
Yeah.
my mind, yes. A while ago I made a list of like top 100 games, and I went and I looked at the top and was like, yeah, this has a spot in the top five. I don't quite know if it's to number one. I feel like I need to sit on it a little bit more than the week or so that I've had to sit on it before I can
Yeah.
say this is the greatest game of all time. But this this game, in my opinion, is borderline flawless. I love this game in
Mhm.
every possible way.
Yeah, so I guess to start, because I am not a fan of the Uncharted series. I am one of the few people who did not like The Last of Us. I think I'm just not a huge fan of the
Oh, I forgot
cinematic game.
about that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that's not even like a troll. Like, ha ha ha. He doesn't like it. I agree. I'm the person who agrees they're completely amazing games. It's just they're just not for me. So like, what is it about Uncharted 4 that separates it, say, from like Uncharted 2, 3? Because I think Uncharted, we talked about Uncharted before on our previous podcast, and we we both kind of liked it. Well, I'm not a huge fan, but you liked Uncharted. But I don't know if I don't remember if it was like on your top 100. So is there something that like made Uncharted 4 just blow past those to the point where it's like this is now one, this is a better game?
To me, what I loved about this, so The Last of Us, I'm very much of a different opinion that The Last of Us is also one of my favorite games. Not
Yeah.
quite. I like this more than The Last of Us personally. And I
Hmm.
know there's been a lot of debate about which one's better, but I personally prefer this one. But what this did that elevates is it took what I really liked from Uncharted, which was kind of that really Indiana Jones 80s exploration storyline
Hmm.
and in made the gameplay much more tight. My issue with Uncharted has always been the gameplay, and I didn't feel like this one had quite as much of that. Oh crap! I feel like I'm controlling some random guy who can't shoot straight.
Hmm.
This refined that a lot more, and it took what The Last of Us did in terms of storytelling and in terms of just the way you integrate the story around the game and just the relationships between the characters and the way everything felt to just whole new levels. So it's that merge of what I loved about The Last of Us
Hmm.
and what I loved about Uncharted, and it just kind of combined into this package of amazing.
It was kind of funny. Like as I was playing the game again, haven't beaten it yet. It actually kind of felt like, oh, this is what the Order 1886 was supposed to be like.
Yes.
But yeah, it's kind of interesting because I do like how it kind of blends the cinematics really well with the game. And the thing that I thought was kind of interesting, like as far as I am in the game and how much I'm not totally feeling it, like the cinematics though, like they're engaging as hell. Like I'm like watching, like
Oh
there's
yeah.
very few games these days where like I'll watch the entire cinematic. I'll kind of like listen to it in the background, but like the animation on top of the acting, it's like just watching a good movie. It's like it's like distractingly good to the point where like the Order 1886, for example, like I wouldn't be totally paying attention, but these ones, like I'm just completely engaged the whole time. So I do like that sort of presentation. I know they sort of drew on that from The Last of Us, which also had like amazing presentation.
And I think that goes with the story as well. You've got such great relationships, and a lot of this, you've obviously built up relationships with Elena and Sully,
Hmm.
and even the new character Sam, who's Drake's brother.
Yeah.
There's or Nate's brother. I guess they're brothers, so they have the same last name. But anyway, the character relationships with those, and this is a very character driven game, which I don't feel like
Yeah.
you see a whole lot. The bad guy in this game is barely really a character.
Hmm.
And without getting too much into spoilers, I don't want to say too much, but the bad guy in this, it's not like there's that central mustache twirling bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
lots of kind of like subtle things that are going wrong and subtle things that are driving these characters forward. And especially when you get to some of the late game stuff, when you're not, which you're not, haven't got to yet, it's really cool the way that the story and the universe and the setting slowly blend together to tell you this way different story than what you think you're getting into at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because I guess mild spoilers for the first hour or two, it's kind of just this tale of Nate and his brother needs his help to go on this one last adventure, and that's kind of
Yeah.
the setup for this. And as you go through this adventure, you kind of almost discover more things about the historical context that slowly seep in really well into the main story. And
Okay.
it all comes together so well in those final probably 6 or 7 chapters that it's just fantastic the way the story is told. And they go back to some of the Joel and Ellie stuff where you have these dialogues back and forth between the
Hmm.
characters as you're exploring these places, whether it's whatever character you happen to be with to kind of avoid spoilers for different parts of the games. But whatever character you happen to be kind of be paired up with at the time, there's optional dialogue. You're talking, there's constant references back and forth. And it's that
Hmm.
conversation that The Last of Us did so well. And I think these characters are much more likable. They're much more engaging
Yeah.
characters in my mind than what Joel and Ellie were, who were just kind of two people trying to survive.
Yeah.
Whereas these people have this deep history. They have these connections. They're related in different ways. They have, the brother relationship, they have the father figure relationship, they have all these different relationships, and that all plays in so well to the story that's being told.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting, like when like as far as I am, like it is kind of it's clear that there isn't some sort of like major. I mean, there's kind of like it's kind of like a major conflict that starts the story, but you can tell like from where I am now that it's like it's going to be internal conflict that's going to be driving the story.
Yeah,
And the thing that's kind of weird, it's like it feels serious, but it also feels like um I guess a bit more intense. I don't know if that's the right word. So it's not like Indiana Jones. What it actually kind of reminds me of is those uncomfortable character-driven indie movies where like the dialogue is. I was surprised how realistic the dialogue felt, and it felt like there's like this general uncomfortableness when characters were uncomfortable. Like you could
yeah.
feel the tension. I was like, that is a weird thing I have never seen in a game. And like, I mean, there's parts where he's married to Ellie, isn't it? Right? That's right.
Ellie's Last of Us. This is Elena.
Oh, Elena, yeah, I'm very close though. I'm not gonna feel bad about that one. Um, I mean, we're both in separate relationships, and it's like the dialogue they use, like that is kind of what it's like to be in a relationship, and it's like it's weird because that's not the sort of relationship you see in games generally. It's the
Yeah,
it's well, what the previous game's probably the best one. It's kind of like they're these sort of like two very kind of heroic-y sort of characters who are kind of like always playing off each other, and this one it's like no, they're actually like in a relationship, and it's really odd.
yeah. Going off of that, there was one scene in particular, and again, not to get super into spoilers, where it's like, damn, I'm pretty sure I've almost had this conversation before, like between him and Elena, where it's like, oh shit, oh god, this sucks. Like I know what that's like. Yup.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
sucks. Like it's like I've never had a game, and that's part of it to me is that relationship and the way these characters work is it seems so grounded, and yet obviously being very ungrounded in what it is, but the
mhm,
character relationships and the way they interact is so grounded and just seems like somebody's writing from, again, kind of that indie movie perspective. We're just going to write this movie about these characters and about how
yeah,
these characters interact. And I don't think I've ever had that feeling of a video game before. It's like, oh man, I've had this awkward conversation and it sucks, and I hate this feeling that I get, and now I'm seeing this person go through. I've
yeah,
had it in movies, but I've never had it in a video game before.
yeah.
Going back to your Indiana Jones point, what this was to me, and I thought about this about like halfway through something, is this is what I wanted the fourth Indiana Jones movie to be. Because the first three are like just these
Oh,
goofy, silly adventures, and it's like, man, this is Indiana Jones' last hurrah, and it's like this is exactly what that felt like. Where the first three are kind of the self-contained trilogy, where it's like this is like fun Drake, and he's just going out and adventuring, and this is like
Yeah,
it's time for this to end. And just
yeah.
the way that differs from the original trilogy is so fantastic and so well done, especially
Hmm.
when you get to some of the end parts. And I'm gonna tell you, you got to keep going because this game, like the first couple hours, like this game's gonna be great, and then I was
Hmm.
like about the point to you, I was like, okay, this game is one of the better games I've played in the last couple of years. It builds like so perfectly that
Yeah.
by the time you do get to the end, you're like, okay, this is one of the best games I've ever played. Because around chapter 10, I was like, okay, this is a really, really damn good Uncharted game.
Hmm.
And as you go through that last little bit, the last part is just so well done. Those last 6 or 7 chapters that, oh man.
I've heard that, and that's the best thing. Like I'm kind of hoping for, and I'm kind of like playing towards that. But to me, it's the thing is like just because I haven't liked Uncharted, I'm not a big fan of The Last of Us. This is like, it is still like heart and soul. I'd say is a little bit different, but definitely plays like an Uncharted. Like to me,
Oh, for
like,
sure.
and that's actually because we've been talking about like the things we've been talking about strength wise is the story and the characters developing, and all that. But in my major issue though is like it seems like that story doesn't fit the gameplay. And I know that's like one of those statements like, oh ho ho, I can't you're just being ridiculous as a video game, and that might be your opinion of it, but like it is really strange because I feel like The Last of Us for certain, the story, as serious as it was, the tone matched the gameplay, like exactly. But now that Uncharted is trying to take that sort of serious character driven story, and then on top of that, have a bunch of shooting and you're still killing a bunch of guys. It's really weird. And there's a major story point that's it's this is not a huge spoiler, but it's kind of centers around the death of a character. And again, I'm sort of at the beginning, and the story kind of kicks off from there, and it's kind of like that the Phoenix Down issue you have with Final Fantasy games. Like, wait, why does this character die? You could just use Phoenix Down. And I get that with this game because like it doesn't make sense that deaths are important in cinematics and deaths aren't important in gameplay, especially because they've decided to make the story and characters so grounded.
But again, I think there's always got to be that suspension of disbelief, and I feel like that's in any piece
Yeah.
of media. And I know you're all against that. And you're like, oh,
No, no,
but
no,
to a
no.
certain point,
I am actually I am totally for suspension of disbelief. But I think that when you could have us there's I have never seen something like this before, that I've never seen a game or anything or any sort of piece of media that's like this with super character driven stories that also have this level of violence associated with them, I guess. Does that make sense?
yeah, it does. And I don't know. That's just one of those things that like I look past as kind of the gamey elements. It's a
Yeah, no,
game.
I can
You know what
understand
I
that.
mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
could they have done this in a everybody's gone to the rapture, Vanishing of Ethan Carter,
yeah, yeah,
Firewatch, that style of game? Yeah, they probably could have told that story. But again, I feel like it's, you know what, the story is an action story and the story is an adventure story. And
yeah.
yeah, you're going to have that stuff in there. And yes, you kind of got to understand what comes with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It is interesting because I remember the scene you're talking about, and I will be perfectly honest with you. This did not even cross my mind until you pointed it out right before we started this.
Yeah,
Like I didn't even realize in my mind, like, oh, I guess that is kind of what happened there. Oh well, like it didn't even
yeah.
cross my mind that like this minor event is kind of what started the story, and it like. But again, I think that's just kind of that looking past it of going like, you know what, that's almost that like, okay, we need some reason for this to happen. Well,
Yeah.
here's kind of our throwaway reason. It almost looks like you're taking the throwaway reason and applying that to the big chunk of the game instead of going like, here's the big chunk of the game. That throwaway part's a little weird.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I just have like this disconnect between like every time a cutscene ends and I start playing, like there's like a weird disconnect that I people have complained about this in the past with Uncharted games, and like with old Uncharted games, like I didn't really care. I thought Uncharted games were kind of fun. Like I could see the silliness in them because the story had sort of a lightheartedness to it, and this one doesn't. And on that point, I was kind of surprised. The story sort of starts with I felt it was kind of strange because like without getting into spoilers, like you're doing something bad, which is weird for an Uncharted game. Like you're doing something that isn't totally great. I think with most Uncharted games, there's some sort of like we're going off on an adventure and we're gonna go save the world from the bad guys, and this like doesn't have that. And the way the story sort of starts in motion is like you're not doing something good, or the way that Drake reacts to certain situations is not a good like the good way to do things, if that makes sense. It's not like the moral way to do things, so it's weird now that they've taken away that sort of like lightheartedness and that swashbuckleness of the game. It makes it a much more engaging game. The story is far more engaging than any other Uncharted games, but it does strengthen that disconnect. I'm gonna probably keep blathering on about it, so I'm gonna stop. But that is kind of like my major issue with the game. But if you can look past it, and there's plenty of people who can, and that's totally fine. I can understand that. Um, it's just like it's been kind of a sticking point with me.
Huh. And it's so weird to me how people react differently to things because
Hmm.
again, like I said, that didn't even phase into my thought process at all. Like
Yeah,
that scene, like you had to explain to me what this scene was when I was like, what do you mean? What do you, huh? I was like, oh yeah, that did happen.
yeah, yeah,
Whatever. So it's just weird
yeah.
how that works.
Hmm.
I do think the kind of Drake that you see in this, Drake evolves so much as a character in this because the
Hmm.
scene that you're referencing is kind of a flashback scene where he's like
Yeah,
trying to do something very not so great,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
seeing that versus like the scene that you go to next, and man, I wish this was a spoiler one right now because I really want because
Yeah,
you can
we'll
really
do a
dissect
spoiler
it.
cast. We'll do a spoiler cast, and we'll maybe if you come to this video late, we'll probably put up a little link to it too. So
But
yeah,
the Drake you're seeing in that beginning scene and the Drake you see in like a chapter or two later have evolved so much from that flashback that it's
yeah,
like, okay, that served a purpose of being like, here's kind of lighthearted fun Drake. Now we get this much older Drake, we get this much more mature Drake,
yeah.
and we're seeing where he's come from to where he's going now, and that kind of in my mind sets the course of the rest of the game together.
I think it's really cool though, because I the older Drake, it's kind of weird because like adventure is sort of an addiction to him, and they almost treat it in certain scenes like as a gambling addiction, or
Oh, for
like
sure.
if you've I mean like this is kind of getting heavy, but if you ever had like friends with like addiction problems or just problems with whatever in general, like he acts like he has a like he is clearly like pushing that sort of addict kind of thing when it comes to this. Like when you're an addict, like you would lie to get what you want, even though you don't want to hurt those around you, but it's just that need for that thing. And I thought that was crazy. Like it's kind of it's daring to do that, especially for such a marketable character. And that's I
Yeah.
think this game is super weird because of that. Like I am surprised this game is like, oh, everybody loves Uncharted 4. Like this is a dark, not dark necessarily, but like
Heavy.
sobering game. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I thought that was really cool, but I mean, that just goes to the acting of everybody. It's like this is just clearly the best looking game ever. With the animation, it's just like it's not even in the uncanny valley. This is like the only thing I've ever seen that goes past the uncanny valley,
Yeah.
which is really really strange. Um,
Yeah, you don't even think that like, oh, these are animated models. It's like, nope, these are people.
there are certain scenes in this game where I'm like, that looks photorealistic, and it's actually kind of weird. It's like one of the things it's one of the things I have with Drive Club where I find it certain scenes almost kind of boring looking because they look so realistic. It's like, okay, I'm just watching a video of that thing, but it's like it's kind of weird. Like as a kid, like, oh, I can't wait till games look real, and now they do. I'm like, oh, it just kind of looks like real life.
Oh yeah, I can like.
It,
Why does the tree outside my window and the tree in this look the same?
it,
Am I looking out my window? I could do that whenever I want and not pay $60.
Yeah, no, and that's what's so weird. That's actually like I think people are really praising the graphics, but it's the graphics really got to a point where it just looked real, and it's like it was kind of strange. Like it kind of lost a little bit of the magicalness, I guess, of
I
stuff.
wouldn't I wouldn't go that far. It definitely looks real, but I in my mind there's still that level of appreciation. Like, damn, like how did you do this? Like this is
Oh
crazy.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
what
yeah,
am
of
I
course.
watching? Like, but the one thing that did stick out to me, and this is like I'm not super big on like, oh, this has to look pretty, this has to look great. Like it looks pretty. Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
leave it at that. The explosions like from grenades and stuff in this are like the coolest thing I've ever
Oh yeah, yeah,
seen.
with like the swirling smoke and stuff. Yeah.
They are like crazy. I don't know why, but that just stuck out to me every time I throw a grenade or every time something explodes. He's like, holy crap! How like I've never seen a grenade look like that before.
Yeah, it is kind of cool because things that would be normally mundane in other games are very exciting in this one, and I think it's
Yeah.
because of that added sense of realism and the graphics and everything like that. Like you're saying, throwing a grenade. Like in Call of Duty, you throw a million grenades and it like kind of blows up, and you're like, okay, that's kind of cool. But in this one, it's like an event when a grenade is thrown,
Oh, for sure. It's
or
so
like
cool.
when an enemy's shooting at you, it's an event. It is kind of cool that it's like it makes. I think there's kind of there's a sentiment that it's like, oh, it's not gonna have these big set pieces like the original Uncharted games, but it's like the set pieces are now small things, but they feel big, and
And
I kind of
again,
like that.
where you're at, there have not been many set pieces. There are plenty of set pieces in this.
Okay. I just all right, all right, all right.
There are still those couple of like Uncharted moments where like, oh shit, what? Holy hell! Like there are a couple.
Yeah.
There's one in particular I'm thinking of right off the top of my head that like I came back to and like as it happened, I was like, oh my god, I don't know what the hell.
I thought the
So
not to get into spoilers, I thought the opening was pretty cool though. I will say like it's a game that like immediately gets you in the action. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I don't know if it's like up there with me of like best openings of all time. BioShock is still. I don't think BioShock is ever gonna get beat.
Bioshock will never get beat. That feeling you get when you go down to Rapture will never be topped.
Yeah, but I mean,
But
how
no,
did you like that opening though?
oh yeah, the opening, even just the first chapter, like where you're on a boat and the
Hmm.
boat scene is crazy intense, and
Yeah,
because I think every Uncharted game is kind of started like this, where you're starting in the middle of the story,
yeah. Oh yeah.
and
I mean, Uncharted 2, like you start like yeah, where he's on the
yeah,
train, which doesn't
yep,
happen until way later. Yeah.
yeah. So you're kind of starting. I think this like where you actually get back to that boat scene is 13, 14ish range, I think,
Hmm.
but that boat scene is just so crazy and just over the tense that like I stopped like as soon as that happened I was like, oh my god, what just happened? Just because you get it, like everything about this game hits you instantly. There's some back
Yeah.
and forth between the characters who you don't quite know who the second character on the boat is at the time,
Yeah.
and there's some like just the way the game looks and the cutscenes are there and the sound and just everything like goes into like, okay,
Yeah.
this is going to be good, and you get every part of what's good about this game in that opening, and you get every feeling of the intensity you get in the rest of this game in that opening.
Yeah. The game is like crazy polished, and like I mean, I guess people who are, I don't think there's anybody who's really on the fence with Uncharted 4. I imagine people are just like waiting to buy it. But I was surprised that it is like the best looking game I've ever seen. I wasn't expecting that from an action game. Like, I think if you think like historically, except maybe Crisis, the best looking games aren't really great gameplay game
Yeah.
wise. Um, so it's kind of crazy that this one has really good gameplay. I will say, side note, Crisis is amazing and probably one of the best first person shooters ever. Um, but I would just say traditionally they're not like good game. Like the best looking games aren't necessarily good games, and I kind of feel bad for the Order 1886 because like at least it's the best looking game. It's not anymore.
No.
It's this is on a different level. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess kind of my last. I see. I gotta play more into it, but I just wish Naughty Dog would do something else besides a realistic setting. Because I would love to see some sort of like what does super realism fantasy look like?
See, and I'm curious to see when you get towards the end, if you get towards the
Yeah.
end, if you change your mind a little bit, just with some of the stuff that like the way the setting works in the end and the way the
Yeah,
kind of
no,
the
I
mystery
know you
evolves
can't. I
into,
know you
yeah.
can't spoil, and but that's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping. Mine's like a third of the game review, and yours is the full game. And you clearly, but you're clearly like very on top of it. I can see why there's at least a dialogue about this game so far from what I'm in. Where I could see like immediately why somebody would get this 11 out of 10 best game ever, and I could also see just as far as I am like somebody not being on board with it.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
yeah,
And I will tell you where you are. I was kind of like a, okay, this is to put numbers on it, which I hate doing. This is like a 9 out of 10. This is a really damn good game.
yeah.
And again, like just as it built, like you could just see like this like curve of like my love for this game growing. It's like, okay,
All right.
Uncharted 4. All right, this is something I'm excited for. Oh, that intro was great. Ooh, oh, and now it's like kind of like a little bit more open, and oh, this just happened. Oh, and it's just like as it goes up, this
Oh, okay.
exponential
Yeah.
growth curve of my love for this game.
Yeah. So how's the multiplayer?
I was gonna say, so to make this an official review to talk about the entire game, what do you think of the multiplayer? I
I,
will say I didn't touch it and don't have any intention of ever touching it.
yep, me neither. We played the beta, and neither of us really like that. So
Yeah, yep. Beta was kind of and yep.
I'm still of the opinion though that you could still like if we are gonna like rate games, like you could still give a game a 10 out of 10 even if you didn't like a large portion of it. Like I
Oh,
still think that's okay to do.
I think, and I think both of us kind of coming up through the tack on multiplayer generation a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I think it's a little bit easier for us to people our age and plus or minus 5 years to go, okay, yep, multiplayer is just the tack on thing they used to get a little bit more longevity out of the game if somebody's really
Yeah.
interested in it. Because to me the multiplayer is not even there. The multiplayer doesn't exist in my mind.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny because this existed for like three. I don't know. They've done three multiplayer games now, starting with
Yeah, I think
Uncharted
Uncharted
2,
2 is the first.
3, Last of Us. And it's just
Yeah, no, not my thing. But
yeah.
yeah, to sum this up, I will say this is in the discussion, if not my favorite game ever. It's right up there with the Halo games that I put hundreds of hours into,
Mm-hmm.
and Final Fantasy X, which I think is still one of the best JRPGs ever made. And
Mm,
this is just such an epic masterpiece of storytelling and gameplay and character relationships that I've never seen in a game before. That
yeah,
the level of detail and the amount of polish that's in this game, it just makes it leapfrog over all of those, because there's no, in my mind, there's no comparison. There's no game I can sit here and point to it has a story as good as this.
yeah.
The character interactions are as good as this. It's the story's as good as Uncharted 4. The character interactions are as good as the character interactions are in Uncharted 4. Like, this is the game that in my mind I'm going to go back to and compare to.
Yeah,
When whatever it is that comes out next year comes out, it's going to be, well, the story's not as good as Uncharted. This
yeah,
is
yeah.
my comparison game from now on.
I'm glad the story's that good because now I'm kind of excited. All right,
You
it's
need
been
to
a
play
good
it.
year. It's
Finish the
been a
damn
good
game.
year for games. I say like the last year
It's
has
been a
been excellent for games.
it's been a great year for games, and No Man's Sky still isn't out yet.
Yeah, No Man's Sky. We got a lot of good. Last Guardian. We got Horizon. Well, Horizon probably not going to come out this year, but there's some good games coming up. Is all I'm saying.
For sure.
So if you guys like what you heard, we are Workforce Gaming. You can follow us at Workforce Gaming on Twitter. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube, iTunes, maybe.
When I remember, because I
That's
don't think I've
Brad's
updated.
fault. If you aren't up to date on iTunes, that's totally Brad's fault.
I may or may not have updated that in about a month and a half.
Okay, so well, whatever you're listening to us on, which is probably YouTube, just click subscribe. Always, leave a comment if you actually have a comment. If you don't, that's okay too. We'll see you guys next week. I guess E3's coming up, so
Later.
we'll have a bunch of stuff coming up soon.
Later. We'll see you later.
Yeah. All right.
Bye.
Bye.